Good afternoon to all IEM and UEM family members yet again. So I'm sure that I am audible and visible. However, alongside me today is Professor Umesh Gurnani. So Professor Gurnani will be presenting today. He has got two roles at the University of Engineering and Management, UEM Jaipur. He is the HOD of Mechanical Engineering. Also, he is the Head Placement Coordinator of UEM Jaipur. So he will be presenting just-in-time manufacturing. It is very interesting. I know a little bit about just-in-time manufacturing. I've got little idea, so I know it's very interesting. So I'm sure Professor Gurnani will make it more interesting. Though Professor Gurnani is not visible, he has got there is some technical problem. You cannot see him, but he is very much there, and he will be presenting the topic today. So Professor Gurnani, you may kindly take over from here.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Thanks to the entire management of UEM Jaipur for giving me this opportunity to present this topic of just-in-time manufacturing in this afternoon session. Like, this topic is common to people who have been into mechanical engineering, also common to people in civil engineering, electrical engineering, and people from management background, because this is related to manufacturing as well as related to management. So in this pandemic situation, it has become difficult for industries to survive, because the big problem is that they do have a stock, but again, like, marketing that particular product and then selling it out in the market with a customer range has become very difficult for them. So just-in-time manufacturing is something which has been adopted by very few Indian companies, but it is very much prominent in USA and in Japan, and they have been doing it for past 20-25 years. And now, like, Indian companies are also prominent in market, and they are trying to adopt this technology, this philosophy, so that they can have a good profit making with having and by supplying specified products to the market. So first of all, I'll start with what actually the just-in-time manufacturing means, or what exactly the just-in-time philosophy talks about. Just-in-time is a philosophy of manufacturing based on planned elimination of waste and continuous improvement in productivity and reduce the cost of operations. Usually what happens, whenever we go to purchase a product in the market, the shopkeeper, the retailer, the distributor, everyone needs to pile up the products. They need to have a heavy inventory. They need to have a heavy stock so that they can meet the demands of customer whenever the customer comes to them. But just-in-time philosophy talks about eliminating the inventory part to have stocks as less as possible, no pile up of the stocks, and we should go for production only when the product is having a need in the market, or when the customer is there, customer is arriving to purchase a product in the market. So they say that the inventory should be in the transit phase, so that whatever the inventory is there in the production line, when it reaches the final customer, in the meantime, the new product is under the operation or under the production process. So it aims to ensure that inputs into production process only arrive when they are actually needed. Just-in-time actually talks about what you need, what you want, when you want, and how much you want. It says that we should avoid having inventory, because inventory stocks comes up with a certain cost. There is a initial investment cost when we pile up the stocks. There is a cost of running, maintenance cost while having the stock, having the inventory. There need to be a warehouse maintenance. There need to be a warehouse engineer or a warehouse manager of the staff who's going to take care of that. So along with that, there will be certain other cost, the cost of running, which will be incurred in maintenance of that particular inventory. And apart from that, we are always scared whether the inventory is going to expire and whether we will be able to sell those goods in the market or not. So it says that we should make the production only up to the limit or in the economic order quantity form in which it is actually required and sell it to the market as soon as possible. So starting with the just-in-time philosophy, it was started in Japan by the uh, Teshi Ono at Toyota Production System in 1970. He was one of the industrial engineers in Toyota Production System, and he came up with this concept of just-in-time philosophy. He focused on three different things. So one was the zero inventory, zero lead time, and the zero failure. So have inventory as less as possible or mostly in the transit phase. Then lead time for that particular inventory or the stock should be as less as possible. And lastly, the process, the system has to be such that there should be zero failure or there should be zero negligence by the staff, by the working engineers, by the working managers, by the management. Because if there is negligence, it may happen that the entire system, the entire company is going to shut down. So the philosophy works on zero inventory, zero lead time, as well as the zero failure system. So just-in-time philosophy actually it evolved in Japan after World War II. So the countries which were a part of World War II, they had a huge economic setback, financial setback in the market, and that was especially in the auto industry. So after having such a strong financial setback after World War, it was difficult for most of the companies to stand up and again have the same kind of customer segment in the market. The president of Toyota Motor Company, he just called up a meeting and he asked the engineers, the managers to look into the current condition and how they are going to survive because he felt that the company, Toyota Motor Company, is no longer going to survive in next 1 or 2 years. So the Tashi Ono, who was the industrial engineer, was taking care of the automobile assembly part. He came up with new thought process. He formed a team and he went to visit US and different companies of America so that where he could come up, where he saw them that they were not going on for a full-time production or they were not going on for huge stocks, huge pileups, and they were having the production only in terms of economic order quantity, in terms of only small factories, small amount of raw materials, so that they can have a, so that those people can have quick turnover of small amount of physical products. They were trying to do the manufacturing in small batches with limited production so that they could sustain. So that was not exactly the JIT, but he got an idea. Yes, if this philosophy can be implemented with certain technology, with certain new inputs, this can become a big sustainability for the Toyota Motor Company. So this is the working method for just-in philosophy, which I have tried to show in the animated form. You can see like at workstation number 1, we are getting the orders, like the customer orders a batch of products, company orders quantity of parts and materials. So the supplier, he tries to supply the raw material within the time as the company actually needs it. So here comes the role of the supplier, that they should be open and they should be able to supply the raw material in the time when actually company needs it. It should not be that the supplier commits that we'll be able to supply within next 5 days and they keep on elongating the process for next 15 days. So definitely this is a negligence maybe by the supplier, by the company, but again If this kind of negligence is there, the entire process is going to shut down. So in workstation number 3 and 4, the parts have reached the company and they are being assembled, and finally the assembled product is being supplied for the distribution purpose. So this is the way in which the entire workstation or the entire system keeps on moving with a minimum workforce, with specified products, with limited manpower, and with very less inventory, so that the cost of carrying inventory, the maintenance cost, and the investment cost in building up the warehouses, the salaries of the staff, they can be completely cut out, and we can save out that money and come up with better quality of products. So this is again another slide which shows the same kind of process, where the supplier comes up and supplies the raw material to workstation number 1, where the fabrication takes place. Then different components have been assembled in sub-assembly workstation. Finally, the higher level assembly is being done and provided to the sales team or provided for the distribution purpose. So you can see that like the process has to be balanced, the process has to be synchronized, it has to be simplified, waste free, and rationalized. So we'll come up to each of these points one by one. So the concept of just-in-time is based on simplicity. As the process which I have shown, it's quite simple, but again, it actually demands minimum negligence or no negligence at all, because if there is a lagging from the supplier, if there is a cutout in form of a quality, if the customers are not happy in terms of quality, if we are unable to provide them the best quality of products, if we are unable to make the improvement in the working system, then the entire system is going to fail. And it of course needs a huge flexibility, because there should be no resistance by the workforce, by the working staff, as well as by the management. So everyone needs to be on their toes, that they need to perform in the best possible way, so that with the help of minimum staff members or minimum engineers, minimum team, they can come up with the best of best of high quality products. Uh, I request VC sir if we can run this video of the video number 1, Toyota Motor Company.
Okay, so I will run that video. Just a minute, please. So the Toyota one. Okay. So it just for the first video, running of the first video takes a little bit of time, so it will come up any moment now. There is a small time delay. So using the process, I'm just waiting for the video to come. Okay, so it will run now.
I'm Alex Berman, and you're watching Selling Breakdowns. Whenever you buy a complex piece of equipment such as a TV or a car, do you ever wonder how exactly it all came together? Well, ever since the Industrial Revolution, that how has been a vital question for many businesses. Today we're going to look at how in post-war Japan, Toyota helped to create one of the smartest production systems that we have, named Just-in-Time. We'll look at how it works and how you can apply the philosophy and practices to many other areas of your business. After World War II, Japan faced some difficult problems. They didn't have a lot of cash, resources were scarce, and there wasn't a lot of free land to expand factories. However, Taiichi Ohno at Toyota managed to turn these problems into advantages by slowly creating the just-in-time system. The idea didn't come all at once, it's more that through the 50s and 60s, various changes were implemented and improved until the 70s, where the wider world began to realize the benefits and adopted a similar approach. So, what is just-in-time? The philosophy is to make the entire production system only work with what it needs and to minimize wait times between each stage. The biggest savings is normally around inventory. Before just-in-time, a company would keep a warehouse filled with the parts and raw materials it needed. When supplies were getting low, they'd reorder when they had just enough to keep going until the new delivery came. But Toyota realized, what if you just keep making that same order as soon as the next one arrives? That way, you never need to keep this stockpile of spare parts. The cost savings were huge since warehousing is seriously expensive. You need to pay for massive space, power, staff, security, and for all the parts that are just sitting there waiting, not making you money or adding value to your product. And this is the core of just-in-time. You look at each area of production and ask, is this adding value to the product? If it isn't, maybe there's a better way to do it. You cut everything down to its most efficient form with almost no room for error, which is where the risk in just-in-time lies. Toyota used Japan's relatively small size to its advantage. You could rely on suppliers delivering exactly on time because they only had to travel small distances. This is important because if you get problems with supply, it can shut down the whole system. But it's normally worth the risk because the savings are huge on inventory and staff costs. More than this though, you're forced to create a working philosophy that there's no room for error. You don't have spare parts or spare time, so you have to make sure everything functions perfectly. Often, efficiency comes at the cost of quality, but not in this case. In just-in-time, you're forced into quality in order to be efficient. That's why it's applicable to many other areas of business. The best way to think about it is if we simplify everything to two approaches: just-in-time and just-in-case. With just-in-case, you're trying to minimize risk by always giving yourself a buffer. You'll carry extra stock so you can swap out faulty items. You'll overstaff certain areas because they've occasionally had too much work to deal with. You'll support a service that just a few customers ask for. With just-in-time, you don't simply cut these areas and cross your fingers that nothing bad happens. No, you work out how you can avoid them happening in the first place. Because this is money that's wasted unless a bad thing happens, you're effectively investing in mistakes. Better quality control means staff can trust the stock that they have so they don't need a backup. As for workloads, the only reason one department is hit by a workload that they can't handle is because there's not enough visibility between departments. If your sales team know the capacity of production and its current status, then they won't put in an order that can't be filled. And as for offering a service with limited customer appeal, well, maybe you cut it out completely, or you just find a way to merge it with other services so the resources it requires are absolutely minimal. When done well, the just-in-time philosophy should be good for morale too, because the whole point of it is telling your staff, I'm trusting you to perform consistently. And I think most of us respond well to that kind of respect. Want to learn more about business theory and history? Be sure to like and subscribe to be notified of our next segment.
So we can stop that.
Okay, so I will again switch back the presentation screen to Professor Gurnani. Professor Gurnani, you can again present your screen, please. Yes.
Yes.
So you may continue.
So yes, just-in-time actually talks about the eliminating the waste part, and the same thing happened with Teki Ono, who started this in Toyota Motor Company. It was not an easy process. It took near about 10 years for him to make improvements in the existing process day by day. And near about, he started the entire thing in 1970s and ended in 1980s. So he worked on the same process for almost 10 to 12 years, and he could come up with a new philosophy that was just in time. Now you can see that it was initially started in US, but again, like the US people, they were doing it as on a trial basis. Taiki Ono, he just took the entire thing. He knew that it was like a do and die situation for Toyota Motor Company, and he tried to give the best of it and come up with a new philosophy. So just in time actually talks about eliminating the waste, and these waste can be like the overproduction. We are doing the manufacturing, the production of products, the parts which we actually don't need, or we may need them maybe after 2 months or 3 months or 6 months. So why to stock them, why to pile them up, why to create an inventory and make a warehouse and store them? So to avoid overproduction. Then second is the waiting time. There are different points in the supply chain management where a product from workstation 1 moves to workstation 2, 3, and so on. So when we adopt the just-in-time philosophy, there is no time to concentrate on the stocks. So the moment between workstation 1 to 2, 2 to 3, and the entire supply chain is bare minimum, and the products can be produced with a high speed and within minimum span of time. So when we are saving time, obviously the cost of production is also less. The third thing is the transportation part. Again, transportation is also a part of supply chain management where the products keep on moving from point 1 to point 2 or location 1 to 2 and 2 to 3. So again, in just in time, we are going to save the production as taken up as a case study for most of the companies. What they are doing nowadays, they are trying to avoid bringing the parts from warehouse or from the manufacturing point to the retailers, to the distributors, and they are trying to supply it directly to the customers, keeping only one point of contact in between. For a, like it can be a warehouse which is going to handle the entire district, or it is going to be a warehouse which is going to handle the entire state. Then the next one is like the motion or the products material handling is minimum. Since the material handling of the motion is minimum, there will be less deterioration of the product, and it will be easy to see that the products do not get expired up before they reach the customers. Again, they are trying to eliminate the waste like the inventory, the defects or the errors. They are going to minimize it in just-in-time manufacturing and the underutilization of employees, because it happens that the company may not have that much of sales, but again it is trying to make the employees work in such a way that the production goes continuously throughout the year. So if we are going to bind the production process to a span of say 3 or 4 months or maybe 6 months, so there'll be better utilization of workers or the employees. So this is I'm like done with the one half of the part, and we can shoot a poll here. It is just about the basics of just in time.
So, so the polls, among the polls, I will shoot one poll now. So the first one, any kind of inventory management needs, that one?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I'm launching a poll, and there are 3 polls today. I request all members to vote at your earliest, where the first poll is any kind of inventory management needs, initial investment or maintenance cost of inventory, manpower, or all of the above. Now we are into 18 seconds and we have reached around 30% votes. So I will be waiting for around 1 minute as we do every day and expecting more than 55% votes. Okay, so it's 36 seconds now. We have received 43% votes. Okay, so almost we are there. It's 56 seconds now, 57. So I will stop it at 1 minute. So we have reached 1 minute. I'm closing it. We received only 48% votes today. So let me share the results. And the results say 68% people says all of the above. That is, any kind of inventory management needs initial investment, maintenance cost of inventory, and manpower. Initial investment comes as is the second one, stays at 17%, 11% is maintenance cost of inventory, and 4% is manpower. It is quite against the fact today that every business depends on manpower nowadays. Anyway, Professor Gurnani, your take, please. So I'm sure you can see the poll results.
No, sir, I'm not able to see the full results actually.
You are unable to see it. Anyway, 68% goes for all of the above and 17% goes for initial investment. So your comments on that?
Yes, actually, it's all of the factors are bound to making the investments in inventory, because whenever we have a warehouse, there's of course an initial investment, and there'll be like maintenance cost for running the warehouse on daily basis or taking care of the inventory on daily basis. Apart from that, there'll be a lot of running costs whenever we have a warehouse. So like all of the option, all of the above is the opinion.
Okay. Okay, so I'm
Like with my
hiding the code, and so you can continue with your presentation then.
So this is the difference actually which we see in the traditional manufacturing system and the just-in-time philosophy. So as per the traditional management system, like from the first part of presentation, like you might be aware, in the traditional manufacturing system, we were concentrated more on having inventories. We can have more of stocks and more of the the transit inventory, even in the running phase, and like everyone of the person in the supply chain is having some of the other in part saved or stored as inventory. But in the case of just in time, the inventory is seen as in available. The second point is like in traditional, there are very the production takes place in large batch sizes, but in just in time, as we talked that we are working on a specific customer demand, so the production process will be in form of small batches. It will be not a like bulk production or mass production, and since we'll be having small production, therefore our product quality will also be better. Now again, like setup times, long setup time are there for traditional manufacturing. Why? Because like huge manufacturing is going on daily basis, and like just in time we have specific products, so definitely very short setup times will be there. And lastly, like in traditional manufacturing, there's less of flexibility, and just in time there's of course high flexibility. And as I told earlier, that the workforce, the engineers, the managers, the entire management has to be on their toes, because again, a small negligence may result in the shutdown of the entire company. The entire process may be shut down. So just in time is not an easy task. If it would have been an easy task, then of course it would have been adopted by maximum Indian companies. And like there are two things like push system and pull system. Push system is something where the company keeps on manufacturing and they are trying to push the products in the market. Somehow they are trying to generate the customers for them, and they are going to sell the products to them. So that is the push system. In just in time, it's a pull system, because specific customers come with limited environment, with limited demand, and we are going to fulfill their demands. We are not going to stock up, we are not going to have a huge inventory, so we need not to push the products in the market. We will that's a pull system, because it is actually working as per the demand of the customer. So there are certain principles for just-in-time philosophy, which are again important, and these are the pillars without which the just-in-time philosophy cannot flourish, or it cannot work actually. So it's the quality management that we are working for. We are working in small batches. We are working with limited raw material. We are working in such a way that we can have a quick turnover and supply the products to the market. So the quality is the important thing which needs to be taken care. Because earlier in the traditional manufacturing, it might happen that when we are having a bulk production, there might be errors, there might be certain defects in the products, and but in case of just in time, we do have less time, but again the products are limited, so inspection and testing becomes easier. So the quality management is one of the important principles in just in time philosophy. Then secondly, the production management, where we talk about having the manufacturing of only limited parts, such that there is no overproduction, which was one of the waste which we have seen in the presentation earlier. Supplier management, it's an important liaison between the company, the sales team, and the supplier. If a supplier initially commits that whenever you are going to order and I am going to make the raw material supplied to you within next 5 days, 6 days, or 7 days, but he fails to do that. So that again it will be a problem for the company because the company is going to ultimately lose its customer base. The customers are not going to reach back the company. You might have seen in social media it happens that people keep on complaining about certain products, certain companies that the delivery takes a lot of time because few of the companies are trying to adopt this, but again they are failing because it might be a problem for them that the supplier is unable to supply the raw material as per his initial commitment. And again, the inventory management, the inventory should be such that it should be minimum and it should be only in transit phase, or it should be a bare minimum so that we can easily have a small storage area. And the next one is the human resource management. So it depends on the motivation, the working capacity of the workers, the sincerity towards their and the dedication towards their organization, whether they want to accept the just-in-time philosophy or not. So very quickly, we can just see all of these 5 factors, like total quality management, as I told. It's like if the products are quality oriented, then definitely it's a long-term commitment. And quality is of course a higher priority than cost because even it was earlier and even it is now that people focus a lot on quality rather than cost. The best example which I always say in my class is like the company Sony. Yeah, whether it is like the audio, it's a Walkman series, whether it's the LEDs in the market, it's having the best picture quality, the best sound quality. So definitely people who can afford that quality, who want to afford that quality, they'll go for the best quality of product. And the quality is a higher priority for them rather than the cost. And the third thing is minimizing the waste part. The second principle which we saw is the production management, which I told earlier, pull system and the push system. In push system, we are trying to have a stock, we are trying to have a inventory and finally push it to the customers. Somehow we need to generate sales because at the end of the day, we need to show something to the company that this much sale has been generated so that the entire process keeps on working. But in just in time, the production system has to be designed in such a way that we are working on the full system and the full system works in such a way that the demand, as per the demand of customers, we are manufacturing the products. So Toyota, like this is one of the good example, best example, which are having a very good licensing with their suppliers, and they were able to have the inventories kept on with the suppliers, not with them. So they were 100% dependent on suppliers for different spare parts, different components, and at the time of the order which they were receiving, they were easily able to get it up and manufactured and sold it out in the market. So the fourth principle was inventory management. Like in this picture, you can see that there are different hurdles like material handling, poor training, breakdowns, material quality problems. So these are something which are already existing even in the traditional system. But what happens, like the blue water region, which is being shown here, that is actually the inventory. Now, these hurdles are there quite below, deep down the sea, and we are unable to see them. But when we come up with the next step, that is like if the inventory is reduced, the blue water is reduced, we are able to come up and see what actually are the hurdles in the existing or the traditional system. So when we adopt this just-in-time philosophy, we'll come to know like is material handling really a problem for us? Are the workers or are the workforce, are the engineers actually trained enough to accept this just-in-time philosophy? or still they need training, or they are having a poor training, then like what kind of breakdowns has the company been observing when they were following the traditional working system. So as the inventory level goes down, you can see like the water level was up, which is visible as inventory. So as the inventory level goes down, we will actually come to know the flaws which are existing in the company. Initially in traditional manufacturing, when we used to have bulk manufacturing, we never used to know what are the actual hurdles being faced by the company. So now, the slide shows that lowering the level of inventory is relatively easy to do. So, however, the problems that arise must be corrected. So, when the inventory level goes down, we came to know like which is the big obstacle which can make the entire system shut down. So we need to rectify that, and we need to work so that the system can work in a very good manner. And last one, the last principle which has been shown is the human resource management, which involves the company-wide involvement. That is, this philosophy cannot be adapted by the manager of the company, the AGM, DGM by the company, or it needs the role of people starting from the ground floor who are working on the shop floor level, like the technicians, the engineers, the senior engineers, the managers, senior managers, even the CEO of the company. So it needs 100% commitment, dedication that yes, we are going to work on this philosophy. We'll be having limited employees, but we will be having diversified employees, and with the help of like the management support and the proper workforce, like the talented workforce, we will be able to implement this just-in-time philosophy. So these are the obstacles you can see which are in the implementation of just in time. Like it happens many a times that whenever there is a change in the existing system, the first resistance comes up with the workforce or the working staff, because they are used to have a flow in the working system. So definitely when there is a change, they need to have an additional training, they need to go with a certain change, they need to have a different mindset for adopting the new technology. So they'll be the first resistance by the workforce. Then again, like depends on the management whether they want to have this just-in-time philosophy or not, or they might just agree to have it and run it on a trial basis. So if we are going to run it on a trial basis, it is definitely going to fail. Then the resistance by suppliers, as I told earlier, like suppliers may commit, but again they may fail to deliver the raw material on the right time. Then lack of fluent communication, like if the flow of information from top to bottom, bottom to top, the horizontal communication, the vertical communication is not proper, then definitely it is going to be a big failure. And again, like whenever we have a new system, a new adaptation, then we need to have a proper formal training. Most of the organization, it happens they lack the training facility, or they do not want workers to leave out the production and go for the training. So due to the lack of formal training, again, even if the employees want to have that, or even if the management wants to have that, they if they are not being trained properly, if they are not able to understand the training part and how to implement just in time, then again it will be a big failure. So coming up with the advantages in just in time philosophy, very less space is required for stocks, as if though there's no stock, no pile up, no inventory. So the cost of warehouse or the space, the, the the headache of having that warehouse or the space is free. So another advantage is having a closer relationship with the suppliers. But it depends whether the supplier is able to work as per his commitments. So if they are able to work as per their commitments, then of course there will be very good relationship. Or otherwise, the things may not work. Another benefit or another advantage is the reduced cost of production, then less vulnerability to fashion and technology changes. Because again, this point is very valid, the fourth point, because it happens that within most of the malls, they just keep on accumulating the variables or the fashion products, and after a certain span of time, maybe like 3 months, 6 months, the product is completely like worn out, or it does not even exist in the market. So the people see the changes in the fashion and they do not want to purchase those products. So that becomes completely a waste. But again, if we see the study of the just-in-time philosophy, this will be an advantage for us. And apart from that, the other points are like reduction in cost, stock holding cost, because again, we are saving a lot of money, as we have seen in the video also, since we are avoiding the entire warehouse, the storage part. So definitely it is going to be a good income for us. We are going to work with the limited staff. The increase in cash flow, because again, the entire process will be hardly for 15 to 20 days or maybe a month. So there'll be a proper cash flow, and there'll be no money stuck up in the supply chain system. And last one is the reduce in wastage, because again, there'll be no expired products, or there'll be no defective or products which are having error. So the products will be freshly manufactured and immediately supplied to the customers. So this is actually even happening in nowadays in most of the online platforms, where the online platform is developed by, say, company A, and they are having a tie-up with say company B or C, and they are just delivering it to the customer directly through company B or C, where A is simply earning the profit. So they are not bothered whether the products which are being saved or stored with B or C it's not a headache for company A. Then going out with the disadvantages, again, it's like somewhat similar to the obstacles which we have been seeing. It's a time-consuming process, because again, like adaptation itself, as we see that like Toyota did it, but again, it took for 10 years for them. So if a company which is already running, it may not take 10 years, but again, it will take a time span of like 2 to 3 years to have the entire system, entire process in a streamlined way, and like no spare products to meet the expected unexpected order. Like if all of a sudden we do have a demand in the market, like if the average sales is like 500 units per month, and all of a sudden if we have like 1000 plus of demand in the market, then again we will not be able to meet the demand of the customer. Then supply stops, if products do not reach on time, like this is a big question for the company. It becomes a problem for the entire brand image of the company. And lastly, it's of course a high risk factor, because if the system fails, then of course the entire company is going to have a shutdown. So I think so. Like we can go ahead and shoot the second poll here.
Yes, I will do so. So which of the following is most important factor in implementation? That one I am shooting. So the poll is launched. I'm sure you can see the poll, and I will again request all members to vote quickly. So again, I will wait for up to 1 minute, out of which we have already waited for 18 seconds to receive 23% votes. We are into 28 seconds and we have reached 35% votes. So the voting is very slow again. I would request all members to vote quickly. I request all members to vote at your earliest, please. We have received 45% votes. We are into almost 1 minute. We are into 59 seconds, 1 minute over. We received 46% votes. I'm closing it. and sharing the results showing 52% people say strong coordination among workforce. That is, in the implementation of JIT manufacturing, strong coordination among workforce is needed. And the next answer, that is 31%, goes with prompt management reaction on all kinds of production issue. So the first option, Professor Gurnani, is 52%, and the second and the third option, prompt management reaction on all kinds of production issue, is 31%. So again, your comments, please. Hello, Professor Gurnani, are you there? Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So 52%
Yes,
goes with the first option,
within
and
this
third option.
hello.
Yes. Go ahead.
Yes. So of course, like the strong coordination between the workforce, like as I told, like the resistance to change by workforce, which you can see on screen, I hope. So that is the main important thing, because it is entirely the game of the workforce. If they are not able, if they are not ready to accept the just-in-time philosophy, they'll not be able to handle the entire thing, or the entire system is going to crash. And then if uh, the workforce is ready to work and they are ready to accept the changes, then of course the second thing is it should be accepted by the management as well, or management should be able to handle the situations or the difficulties which are going to be there. And after that, again, like supplier interaction, supplier liaising comes on later, because it happens that most of the suppliers will be able to deliver the raw material for the product at the right time, because ultimately they have to handle the inventory. At some of the other point, the inventory has to be there, so it may go with the supplier. So like the supplier point comes on to the third point. So, like this,
Okay.
is my screen visible?
Yes, your screen is visible.
Hello?
You may. Yes, your screen is visible. You may go ahead.
Yeah. So like again, McDonald's is one of the best examples of just-in-time services. What they do is that they just wait for the customer to come, and they don't cook until unless the customer gives the order. Now you can see like what happens is that in case of McDonald's, like the wastage is minimum. The limited customers are visiting. After the visiting of customer, they are preparing the order. So it happens that you might have seen the advertisements of like burger for 59 rupees, or maybe 99 rupees, or combo pack for 129 rupees. So out of that 129 rupees or 99 rupees, you can see the kind of profit they are making. The franchisee owner of the McDonald's, the higher management of the McDonald's, the entire staff salary is being coming out of that. So the entire thing is is a sort of profit generation, as if they are accepting this. So not only McDonald's, but it happens that like most of the is, but again, we need to have a minimum inventory in terms of the vegetables or the food items, eatables which they need to save. Then again, like the wastage here is minimum, because whatever they depend on the customers, and finally whatever customer is ordering, they are going to supply it. So this was one of the success story, and the second one is about the Dell. Now, like what Dell is doing, they are doing the same thing which the other online platforms or the e-commerce platforms have been doing. They do have a minimum inventory in the transit mode, and most of the time when a person orders for any kind of parts or any kind of products from Dell, they supply it directly from the company. So it's a seamless system that allows Dell to transmit its component requirement so that they'll arrive at Dell in time to fulfill the lead time. So usually it happens that whenever we order, the Dell has got a specified time, and they won't deliver before that time. So within that particular time limit, they're going to arrange for that part, or they're going to manufacture it, or even if that is possible in the transit phase, they're going to supply it to the customer. So this is a video which is related to Dell, which will explain the entire thing in a better way. So we can run this video number 2.
Okay, so I will run this video. Just a minute, please. So supply chain of Dell is the video. So it will start in any moment.
Hello everyone. In this video, we will discuss the supply chain strategy of Dell. Let us understand what is meant by supply chain. Aim of the supply chain is to fulfill customer needs in efficient way. A supply chain includes suppliers, manufacturer, transporters, distributors, retailers, and customers. Now we will see how the supply chain layout looks like. It includes supplier, manufacturer, distributor, retailer, and customer. To understand supply chain of Dell, we first need to understand push-pull view of the supply chain. There are two types of processes, push process and pull process. Push process is also known as speculative process and pull process is also known as reactive process. In push process, execution is initiated in anticipation of customer orders based on forecast. In pull process, execution is initiated in response to customer orders. This is the supply chain view of other PC manufacturers. Here, from supplier to retailer, push process is executed, and from retailer to customer, pull process is executed. Dell has a different business model than its competitors. In Dell's supply chain layout, distributor and retailer are replaced by direct distribution channel. In Dell's supply chain layout, from supplier to manufacturer, push process is executed, and from manufacturer to customer, pull process is executed. The other aspect that makes Dell's supply chain unique is its build-to-order strategy. In Dell's build-to-order strategy, consumer enters configuration on the website of Dell. After receiving the order, Dell starts manufacturing and assembly of the PC. After the assembly, product is delivered to the consumer. Advantages of Dell's direct distribution channel and build-to-order strategies. Low inventory levels, faster response to demands, higher profitability, and customer satisfaction. Thanks for watching.
Okay, so that was an informative video. Professor Gurnani, I have switched the presentation back to you. So you can again share your screen, please.
I hope so. My screen is again visible.
Yes, your screen is visible now.
So we saw that this was been initially started from TPS, that is Toyota Production System, and very well adopted by Dell also, and adopted by Harley Davidson. So very quickly, I'd like to wind it up this part. As what Harley Davidson has done, it's working on the same philosophy of Dell. They do not have like n number of warehouses. They what they try to do is that they try to have one single assembly plant for a particular region where they can call up the parts. They don't try to have the entire inventory within their company. So they are dependent more on suppliers, and they try to have an assembly plant which is going to handle a particular area. So that might be an area of say 500 kilometers or maybe 1000 kilometers. So they'll be having a small assembly plant. Immediately they'll call for the parts from the supplier and manufacture it and deliver it within a span of like 15 days or 20 days or maybe a month. So this is what they have been doing in Harley Davidson. So these are the different kind of success stories. But again, like it is not easy to implement just-in-time philosophy, because see, like the Toyota took 10 years, again like Dell took 3 to 4 years to accept it, and like this Harley Davidson also took almost 5 to 6 years. So whichever company is going to introduce it, initially it is going to have a failure, but it has to be prepared for that particular failure. So like there are a lot of multinational companies who have been doing it, and also Indian companies who are trying to have this just-in-time philosophy so that they can meet the demands of customer within a particular time limit with the best of quality products. So these are the success stories, the different brands which are associated with just-in-time technology. Xerox is there, Toyota is there, Xiaomi is also there nowadays. They are trying to have this in Zara, which is a fashion brand, and Walmart, McDonald's, Apple. They are all associated with just-in-time philosophy. So that is why we don't see their products immediately into the market. But again, if the customer is ordering, they just promise a particular time limit and they uh, deliver the product to the customer.
Okay,
So we can have the third poll also, and after that we can have the queries.
surely. So let me share the third poll. There is a third poll again. So I have launched the third poll and requesting all to kindly answer. And the poll asks, a company markets furniture, doesn't manufacture, orders manufacturer on purchase. That is, when a purchase occurs, the manufacturer is ordered by the company who markets. The manufacturer delivers the product directly. Question is it just-in-time manufacturing? It was a long question. We had to shorten down because of the space limit of the polls. So I just clarified the meaning of the poll. If there is any error in understanding, a company who markets furniture, the company does not manufacture the products. Whenever there is an order from the customer, the manufacturer is then ordered by the company who markets. But the manufacturer delivers it directly to the customer. The question is it just-in-time manufacturing? So we have reached 1 minute and we have received 44% votes. So we steadily decrease, no, 47% votes. Anyway, 48%. So the voting is still going on. I believe there was some understanding problem with the polls. So the voting has increased up to this time still. So we have reached 50% votes now. I'm closing it because it's 1 minute 30 seconds. I will share the results. So the results are shared, and as you can see, 54% people agrees up to a certain extent. I think that's a safe decision. 54%. 42% strongly agrees with it. 4% strongly disagrees with it. So Professor Gurnani, 54% goes with the agree part, 42% with strongly agrees, and 4% strongly disagrees. So your comments, please.
Yes, that's a part of just-in-time philosophy. As we take an example from any of the online platforms, say Amazon. Say if I order something today and they promise that they're going to deliver it within next 10 days, but if they fail to deliver it, then again it's a brand. It's like spoiling the brand image of Amazon, not the supplier. So it is going to affect the branding of the online platform actually. So this is a like a just-in-time philosophy accepted by the online platform.
Okay,
So we can have some other questions which are related to this.
there are a few questions in the questions box, so I will very quickly take those if you agree. Professor Gurnani, should I go ahead with the questions?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so the first question was from Dr. Subroto Chattopadhyay, who asks, how is JIT related to predictive analytics?
How is JIT related to?
Predictive analytics.
No, sir. JIT will not be related to predictive analysis because, like we saw the push-pull system. Within push system, which was a traditional manufacturing, that was more related to predictive analysis. But again, this JIT, it's not, it's very less like related to predictive analysis. It is more of what is actually happening. Like there are two parts. One is like we are forecasting the upcoming demand, and the second is we are seeing what actually is demand of the customer today. So there are two different parts, but JIT is it's not related to predictive analysis. It is more related to what is actually happening or what is actually the demand of the customer.
Okay. So the next question is from Professor Sandeep Kumar Chaudhary. I am sure that Professor Subroto Chattopadhyay got his answer. In case of now from Professor Sandeep Chaudhary, the question is, in case of aircraft industry, the highest valued item like engine has to be always kept in stock. This leads to high inventory cost, but it is an essential item for this industry and stock has to be kept, though cost is very high. How JIT can be applied here? I think this is a very good question, Professor Gurnani. So your take,
Yes,
please.
it's a very good question. So like in this case, like I would like to say there are two things. Either we need to drop the JIT philosophy here and we need to have the stock as you told. Definitely it is going to be a high investment, but we do not have any other option because we looking at the strategic point of view, looking at the defense point of view, it is important because if at any time we need this kind of part of the component of the engine, and if it is not available, it is going to be a huge setback for us. So I feel so like we should drop JIT here and we should go for whatever the cost we need to afford, and we should have that part in inventory actually.
Okay. So okay, that is definitely an option. So Professor Shubhankar Maulik asks, is there any difference between JIT manufacturing and lean manufacturing?
Yes, there's no difference between JIT and lean. There are two different terminologies, and lean is the extraction of the traditional manufacturing, which has been dropped down in such a way that instead of having like the bulk production, we are going to do the same kind of production but at a lower level. We are doing the same thing in just in time, but again within just in time we are doing one more thing, that we are waiting for the response of the customer. Within lean manufacturing, again we are doing the traditional manufacturing process, but we are having a predictive analysis as sir told, which is an important part of traditional manufacturing system. So lean is somewhat a small part within the JIT itself. So JIT is a big picture where we need to have lean integrated with that.
Okay. Now, there is a comment from Professor Ravindra Manju stating that in JIT-based system, products and raw materials are delivered to the right place. That's a comment from Professor Ravindra Manju. So, if there is any further comment from your side, Professor Gurnani, then fine. Otherwise, I will go for the hand raises. If there are any, I will request all members, if you are not interested in asking a question, then kindly lower down your hand. I will only check the raised hands. Hand raise is a very important part of any webinar. I see Professor Shaptaparna Ghosh has raised her hand. So I have muted you, Professor Shaptaparna. I have muted you. If you seriously have a question, you may kindly, I have unmuted you, sorry. You may kindly unmute yourself and go ahead with your question. Professor Shaptaparna, I have unmuted you. So is this hand raise again a mistake? I request all members to kindly check your hand raise. If your hand is raised and you are not interested in asking a question, then kindly lower down your hand. Otherwise, it is considered that you want to ask a question orally. It is an important feature of this webinar. Anyway, so again, Professor Vishwadeep Basu Mollik, your hand is raised. I have unmuted you. If you are seriously interested in asking a question, you may kindly unmute yourself and ask. Okay. So it's not working as of now. Professor Arun Kumar Chatterjee has got his hand raised. Sir, I have unmuted you. I'm sure that you want to ask a question. Yes,
Yeah,
go ahead.
can I go ahead? I can
Yes,
hear you. Can you hear?
please, go ahead. Go ahead, sir.
Okay. My question is rather simple. It is like, if the inventory carrying costs is passed on to the suppliers, then their price of components to the parent company will obviously go up because somebody has to pay. Somebody has to pay, and ultimate payment is made by the customer. So instead of carrying high inventory by the parent company, if the suppliers are, say, I would not say forced to have more supplies, more inventory, then they will have a carrying cost which is higher, and that carrying cost will be built into the supplied product to the parent company. So, what are your thoughts or takes on this?
Yes, sir, that's a very valid point. In the middle of the presentation, I told that like some or the other way the inventory has to be there. Like either it has to be on the supplier end, or it has to be like in the pipeline in the transit mode, or it has. So these are the like two parts which where the inventory exists. So definitely, I think so. If it is going to lie with the supplier, then the cost of the product which is being supplied to the customer is going to increase. But as far as I've studied, I feel so that if it would be better to keep it with suppliers rather than having it within the system, to have the inventory with the company which is selling the product directly to the customers. So it is better to keep it on suppliers end, but because that will reduce the inventory cost a bit less compared to that which is being borne by the company which is selling the products. So if it is on the supplier end, there will be a minor fall in the product cost. This is what I feel. So like whatever I have studied there.
Okay, so thank you. I believe that Professor Chatterjee has got his answer. So I think that's the end of the webinar today. Professor Sandeep Kumar Chaudhary has agreed, saying that yes, in case of aircraft industry, engine has to be kept in stock. So thank you, Professor Chaudhary. Thanks to all IEM and UEM family members, and thanks, Professor Gurnani. It was a nice presentation. Okay, thank you. Thanks to all of you.
Thank you.